All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Dad at Arms channel. I'm your host, Dad at Arms. I also go by Colt, and today we are going to jump in and be talking about the new Revolution that just dropped. And with me to help me do that today is my friend Ted Biaselli of Netflix. Hi, Ted.
Hi, Colt.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I think that the revolution will be televised, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. um, I watched it all in one sitting.
good.
I
Good. That's as
loved
it
it.
should be.
Exactly. And it did. It felt like it was cut like a movie. It felt like the pacing was good, the conclusion, how it wraps up and nothing felt really rushed. I mean, it was enjoyable. It was a fun experience and ah, ev- it's what I've been
Most,
waiting for.
in the classic series, there were two-parters, but there was never a five-part miniseries. There was a five-parter in She-Ra to introduce She-Ra. But there were five-parters for G.I. Joe and Transformers and Inhumanoids, and like there were so many five-part mini-series that felt epic, Gem and all those. And we really wanted to do like a classic five-parter. Like that was the whole goal behind it. It was kind of the goal behind Revelation as well. Obviously, COVID got in the way, things pushed
Hmm.
out, and we wound up doing two fives as opposed to a 10. But I will say that watching the five parters like this, it just evokes the right kind of nostalgia for each and the end of each episode to go, oh, I want to watch the next one, like
Yep.
that kind of thing, by design.
Yeah. Well, I felt it. It was very cool. Um, what shirt are you wearing today?
Oh, I figured we would talk a little. Oh, of course, we're wearing the same shirt today. Of course. I figured we would talk a little bit about Skeletor today since he had such a great, arc in Revolution. I would wear a Skeletor shirt, and you had the same idea. Well done.
Yeah, it's always fun. Um, do you have any new toys that you want to talk about? What's on
I
your shelf?
do have new toys, and now that it's out, I can actually talk about
Oh, so
Skeletor.
cool.
Isn't he cool? I love him so
He's
much.
cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm really, really excited about the figure. It was one of those moments where we knew it was going to be tricky, the
Yeah.
timing wise, right? But we also knew that the 1-2 punch of the reveal in the show and then the toy, like instantaneously later, was going to
Hmm.
be like, oh, it was talkie moments kind of thing. But obviously, the greatest spoilers in all of cinema all happen from toys.
Yep.
So, but it's fine. And I think most people went in there going, how is this going to work? What
Yeah.
does this mean? Is this a multiverse? What is that? And which is fine to have the kind of questions, that people were going to have with it. But I wish the reveal, and for some people who don't follow the toys or don't collect the toys, the reveal works, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
then don't accept the crown. Like that moment is so like, wait, what? And we glossed over it so beautifully when Randor's on his deathbed and he goes, I've lost friends, family, even a brother. And it was a throwaway line that we dropped in there, and we're like, oh, because at the time we thought, well, we're not going to get a Keldor figure, at least not for a while. Like we didn't even think of
Right.
that. But the folks at Mattel were really excited by the design. They were really excited by the prospects of the character, and that it made its way into the second wave of this year's figures. So, and we were like,
Cool.
oh, and they're like, well, it doesn't come out until March, and I was like, yeah, but it was like, man, we were so close. We were like 3 weeks away
Weeks.
from
It was
launch.
weeks.
3 weeks. Ah! But it is what it is.
It feels like it's one of those things, as a fan on the outside, it has driven the conversation about the show and,
Sure.
it's built excitement. So I think that's the silver lining of it, you know, but I'm
It was
sure.
nice because I actually got Bill to sign a Keldor figure for me that's in my office, and I don't have a
Awesome.
lot of signed figures. I have Keldor now. I have Liam Cunningham signed my Man-at-Arms figure. I have the Orko Gwildor 2-pack signed by my dear friend Griffin Newman. By the way, I also signed the pack too. And there was one sitting somewhere in the hallway, and I grabbed it and I said, "Hey, Griffin, can you sign this for Colt?" And he was like, "Sure." And I think it found its way into your collection.
It did. It did. It's sitting right here. And it's just so cool. It's got
that was another secret that we tried to keep, because one of the things that we liked was the speculation over who Shatner was going to play. Right. And I think it was part of the conversation, right? Like, let's keep it a secret. Let's, I think the reveal of Keldor in the show was going to intrigue the diehards, because we established Skeletor thinks he is a demon from another dimension. He says it reversed and stuff like that. And what we wanted to do was, even in the mini comics that they did for the Revelation prequel, there is doubt. There is doubt that that's the truth, right? And there is a prequel comic series coming from Tim and Rob and I that fills in the gaps a little bit for what you don't see in Revolution. But, everything we did drew on what we know of, right? Hordak and Shadow Weaver and other media have removed the memories of She-Ra. And when she was an acolyte of the Horde. And we thought, well, why wouldn't he do that to Keldor? Of course he would. And in the mini comic, you'll see why he thought he had to.
Cool.
So there's a really juicy moment of why Hordak thought Keldor's loyalty couldn't be trusted if he knew exactly who he was. And it's like, oh, well, that's got to go. We lean into all of that stuff. We also borrowed from the idea that, Hordak has a magic wielder, right? Shadow Weaver was his magic wielder in previous iterations of this. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if before Shadow Weaver, Keldor was his magic user? And I thought that would be a really neat role for him in this, in that where all others, all other creatures of the Horde have different abilities, and whether it is magic or tech-based, he has one right hand that will be his magic user. And we thought, what a great role for Keldor to be. And then we tied the origin of the face. I personally never really bought the acid face.
The acid burn.
Like, it would just kind of deform you. I don't know if it would remove everything all the way down to the skull. And then the whole merging with Demo Man, where Hordak merged with Demo Man. We actually borrowed a little bit from 2000X, where the Faceless One mentions the curse of wielding the Havoc Staff. Okay. And we were like, oh, what if actually holding the Havoc Staff itself is what causes you to pay a price? You have to pay a price for that. And in that, you lose whatever clutch you have to mortality or to humanity. And we thought that can manifest in a whole bunch of different ways, right? It manifested differently for the Faceless One, should we ever decide to integrate the Faceless One story into Revolution universe. And it manifested this way into Skeletor. And we have a whole story about the three gods between Zorka and Havoc, and where they fit in the universe, and how their magic is used, and all of that. We have all that in a document that we sort of go back to and double check and cross reference to make sure that we're lining things up consistent. And one of the things we talked about was the curse of Havoc and what that means. And then you even see it when Tila gets it. There were a couple designs of Tila in that Havoc sorceress Tila, and one of them she had a skull, and one of them she had no face, and one of them there were all a bunch of different ones. We ended on something that borrowed, I think, heavily from 2000X. If you look at sort of the look of her outfit, it's very much the Faceless One, Evilin, and yet then we borrowed a little bit from Krita, the color scheme with a bright orange hair, the purple thing. We never, we don't say where Krita gets her magic from, but we can infer. And we just thought it was a nice nod to the sort of aesthetics of the New Adventures magic wielder, Krita.
Yeah.
Again,
very cool.
He cut, nerds, the diehard He-Man fans will look at her and go, wow, it looks like Crit is wearing Evilin's armor. And then, the casual viewer will be like, oh, shit, she looked creepy. So that's kind of, what we were aiming for. I talked a lot. That was a lot.
That's okay. That's okay. You answered a lot of my questions.
Talk to people about this.
I know.
I've been sitting on this for 2 years.
And that's why we're here today. We're going to get it all out. This is therapy.
It is. Look, I work on a lot of shows, at the time that, this comes out, we'll be a little less than a month away from Avatar's launch. And then been sitting on that for 4.5 years. And then before that, One Piece and Wednesday. And, we're working so far out. Like I have scripts for One Piece season 2 and Wednesday season 2 and Avatar season 2 that are so far out. Avatar season 2 isn't even greenlit yet, but we worked so far out. And it's like it's so hard to keep all of that inside and then keep track of who is in the know, who you can have conversations with, who you can't. And it's like, it's really tough. It's really tough.
That's
especially because people I know who want to know or who would get excited about things like this. Like, I want to have those conversations with people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great, and I'm glad it's finally here. I'm glad we're able to talk about it. So let's get in depth with it. But real quick, the comics you mentioned,
yes,
they are coming in May. Is that correct?
I believe.
Cool.
That is correct.
Awesome. Well, we will have to talk about those on another episode. That'll be fun.
That would be fun to get all three of us, to get Tim, Rob, and I together, because I think the three of us could bounce off. And a lot of times we all remember things a little differently. Isn't that the way life works, where everybody's point of view is a little different, and
it's a little bit askew.
Based on where you were sitting at the table, you remember the meal a little differently. And I think that is one of the things that makes life interesting. And it also breeds a lot of contention across conversations and fandoms. But I think when you get Rob, Tim, and I together, you get a whole picture.
Well, let's do it. That sounds fun. So, the Revolution. There's obvious references and inspirations that are apparent in Revolution. I think you've talked about it before, but one of the main ones is the Filmation episode, Problem with Power. Mm-hmm. And this is Adam's dilemma as He-Man. Yes. And what that means and what it means to be He-Man, as well as his other roles that.
Yeah. If Revelation was inspired by, Tila's Quest and Tila's Triumph and The Witch and the Warrior, this is very much the Problem with Power. Also a little bit the episode reunions from She-Ra. There's a little bit of that, the way the backstory unfolds and all of that stuff. We really wanted to sort of, I love telling backstories. I love going into the flashbacks and seeing where people, got to the place that they are now. Obviously, you can get lost in the sauce. You can just do backstory. And I think it's really important to just make sure that the what you are seeing influences the moment in the present that your characters are in conflict with. And I think that's the essence of really good flashbacks. It's what is triggering this flashback right now for either the characters on screen or the audience to know. And there's a real artful way to do that. I think Tim did a beautiful job writing that episode where, the lines that Hordak was saying was triggering to Keldor and vice versa. And Keldor would say something that would trigger Hordak, and it would be this beautiful volley between the two of them that gave us some insight into both of those stories. But yeah, the other side of that, the Problem with Power, it's a great example of what we really, really set out to do with both Revelation and Revolution. It's talk about why Adam is the hero, right? Mm-hmm. Why he's the one that wields that power. His moral compass, his internal sort of meter of right and wrong and good and bad and fairness and thoughtfulness and all of those things, right? And I think that Problem with Power did it so beautifully that his moral code and his ethics allowed him to put those above sort of the the moment, the duty of the hour, right? People regard that as the best episode of Filmation. I think it's kind of universally hailed as the best episode of Filmation. And, story by Tom Tataranowicz, and, just a really, really brilliant way to put a crisis of consciousness in He-Man. And we wanted to sort of evoke that without duplicating it, right? Because in our minds, that incident happened in our story, right? So we wanted to do this on the flip side. Like, what would cause He-Man or Adam in this moment to question whether or not he should put on the crown? Not whether or not he should be He-Man, but whether he should put on the crown. And Rob was really inspired by the dilemma of the sword versus the scepter, and really wanted to sort of get under the hood of what that means for someone who's destined to rule. And, also, again, one of the things we do with Revolution or our version of Masters of the Universe is look at these things through a 21st century lens. And I think, the concept of monarchy to someone who is such a champion of the people, he wouldn't just question whether or not he should put on the crown. Adam would take it a step further. Should there be a crown? Right. And I think that was one of the things that we really wanted to sort of like, ooh, this is deep. Like, yes, sure, King He-Man, great. It's a cool concept. It's a great character. It's a badass. It's He-Man with a crown. But would Adam believe that one person should rule an entire planet? What would cause that sort of question in his mind? Right. And I think it's in our story, it starts out being, I like being He-Man. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with, you're really good at your job. Why would I take this other job? Right.
Especially after the revelation has occurred, now he doesn't have to pretend that he's a coward. He doesn't have to pretend that he's irresponsible or lazy. Now he gets to fully embody who he is as the champion, as both Adam and He-Man. 100%. He doesn't have to hide who he is.
And I think that from Randor's point of view, Randor looked at that and went, wow, I'm going to have to ask my son something that I never thought I'd have to ask him. Like, I always worried that my son wasn't smart enough or brave enough to be the king. No, now I realize my son is the most powerful man in the universe. And I have to ask him if he should lay that down to be the ruler. And I know that a lot of the criticism is like, well, why can't he be both? Why can't he be both? Well, you can't have it both ways. You want He-Man in battle in every episode, right? That means he is not on the throne. Yes. That means he is not there tending to state affairs. And that is truly the big question that we had going into this is, okay, He-Man he's now He-Man, and the world knows that it's Prince Adam. There will also be a large contingent of people who say the most powerful man in the universe should not be king.
Sure.
Like there is a
power corrupts.
Absolute power corrupts idea. And Adam is ahead of that. Adam's like, I'm not gonna even put myself in a situation where that could happen. Right. I mean, the easy story that we could have done that I think has been done before is he takes the seat of power, and then through some magic or something, he is then controlled by the villains, and now he is a puppet on the throne. I think that's happened to Superman with Darkseid and all that stuff. So we've seen that before. We didn't want to, teach He-Man a lesson. Like, we didn't want him to be, put on the throne and then, oh, see, this is why you can't be both. I think in this scenario, he went into the situation with the best of intentions by saying, I'm gonna abdicate the throne, and because I know the world needs He-Man, and I know the world needs a king. This guy is blood. I believe that he's blood. He's shown me. I saw it. I saw him be a hero in saving the people today. I think I have to do right by my family's line, and I have to do right by the rest of the world. So this is how I'm going to approach the situation. I don't think that he was duped in the sense that he was played. I think that, I mean, that's part of the dialogue, sure.
Right,
But
right.
I think that Adam really went into it with the best of intentions. And I think that's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch He-Man, be the moral compass that we all want to be, and realize that there are situations, and it's no irony that William Shatner is in the role, because he's put into a Kobayashi Maru. He is put into a situation where, you can't win, so let's tear down the monarchy. And I think that's kind of the fun answer to this, right?
Right. Well, and it also, what I like about it is it sets up the moral dilemma of king or champion. But if in the end, if he just decides to do both, to be king and champion, then there is no moral dilemma for him, and so I think it's more of a responsible,
until
right.
something happens, and then in which
Yes.
case it's a reactive choice for him. He is going out and fighting, bad guys somewhere, and then somebody attacks the palace, or something happens within the walls of the palace, or not unlike what the hell is going on now in our own country, where
Right.
we have wars, we have invasions, we have the push and pull of understanding all sides and being a diplomat and understanding, trying to sort of repair broken alliances and listen to every aspect of what is happening, and still tend to your own backyard. It is. I don't want that job. I don't want that job.
No.
And I feel that there is we flippantly talk about how easy it is to be the king, to be the champion. It's good to be the king, but I think that if you take it seriously for a minute, and that's what we try to do with this show, even though that there are, robot-headed elephant people, we still try to put it through the lens of contemplating real issues maturely. And I think that was one of the things we've said is, like, can you do both? And maybe you shouldn't.
Maybe you shouldn't. I like that. Going back to this idea of, you said you didn't want to show, you didn't really want to show He-Man being duped into this, giving up the crown to Keldor. But I think it shows his willingness to have hope and believe in people at face value, to take them at their word. And I think that's a good quality.
It is a great quality. Fool me once.
Something happens and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I was wrong. I can admit I was wrong. Now I fix it.
That's part of life. Let everyone in until they tell you that they shouldn't have been let in.
Yes.
At least that's the way I live my life. So
I agree.
I wouldn't have met you.
Deserves that chance. Exactly.
I wouldn't have met you if I didn't, let you
closed
in.
off
At a time when everybody was coming at me with daggers and swords, here was somebody who came out with an open hand, and I was like, oh, this guy. And there are people who also came at me with open hands, and I took those hands, and then I saw how duplicitous they were online. I told you those stories where I see things in comments that they make in other threads, and I'm like, I have some very interesting DMs that say so very funny.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that is life. And if we're looking at our heroes to learn how to be better people, it's good to see them struggle with similar challenges. So,
yeah. And what a great sort of beautiful antithesis for the villain's story in this. And we've been saying this is very much a Heman Skeletor story, and it is. I'm sure somebody will find problems with it, but whatever. We set out to make this a He-Man versus Skeletor story, and when we came up with the notion of how we were going to crack Keldor into this, the idea that Keldor was I think Skeletor uses the phrase "a king denied." I think like that. I think that there is a lot of layers to that, right? And that's what we wanted to sort of allude to in the scene with Miro. he has a line. He says, it's more complicated than that. And we didn't want to just make it that, well, he's blue, so he can't sit on the throne.
Right.
There's a lot of complexities. One of the things we really wanted to show was young Keldor and Randor. And Tim wrote the line, Randor thinks he hung the moons.
Yeah.
And I love that line so much because Keldor was Miro's son. And Miro loved him. He said, he is a part of me, Amelia. And I think that there are so many beautiful little nuanced moments in that one scene. And you get so much. Obviously, you'll get more in the mini series, the comics. But what we were able to do time-wise in our show, I think, is very important to how that dynamic played out. And I think that knowing that Hordak manipulated Keldor and said, here's the thing, I'm going to give you everything you need to take back your throne. We don't know what Saren told Keldor and how, I mean, from the animated series, you'll get that in the mini comics, and how she raised her son. Think about the movie Excalibur, right? I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Excalibur. Friggin' great. But the way Morgan Le Fay raises Mordred and and what she does, that's the story. I don't know if you guys know, but that's the story of Keldor and the throne. Awesome. And that is what we're trying to sort of deliver on, is very Le Mordarte. And it's, I think that the team did it beautifully. And then when we decided, okay, great, the illusion is Keldor. He's Keldor somewhere in there, but he's the illusion that's Keldor. If we have Mark do it, you're going to know that it's Skeletor. Right. Anybody will know that it's Skeletor, right? And we thought, wouldn't it be funny if Keldor didn't sound like Skeletor at all? Wouldn't it? And then we were like, well, who could it be? Who could be the antithesis of Mark Hamill? And we were like, Harrison Ford. And we're like, nah, it's not really Harrison Ford. That's not the thing. And I was like, you have two sides of the universe. And I went, do you think we could get Shatner? And Kevin went, we should fucking try. And Rob, who is the biggest Star Trek fan in the world, was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. You think? And here's the thing. Bill got it. He got it. He knew exactly who this character was. He read every script. He came prepared. Most people, what they don't realize is that when Shatner comes in to do his recording, he doesn't just do his lines. He will do an interpretation of the entire script. He will read every part. He will bounce back and forth to each other. And he'll do it a couple times. It'll give you so many different choices of how this line should be delivered. And it was a masterclass to watch. He is
that's incredible.
So fun. And we were just sitting there watching him. And this man is a legend, a living legend. 91 years old, drove himself to the recording studio, gets out. I said, hi, Mr. Shatner, I'm Teddy. I'm one of the producers. He goes, oh, so you don't do anything on this show? And walked right by. Sense of humor, smart, understood the show, understood the character, real dimension to what he brought to the role. And, we knew that this was the politician side of Skeletor and what he wanted to deliver and all the, the charm. He had to be charming until he was full of rage. And then we were like, oh, the more we played with it, the more we loved this madness of King George, right? Like the Skeletor side fighting against the Keldor side, and who is truly in charge at that moment. And I think that what happens is in the big apex fight with Skeletor and He-Man, when He-Man says, you still think you're the victim. You're always the bad guy, Keldor. And he goes, my name is Skeletor. Like that, or no, that's the Hordak fight when he says that, when Hordak calls him Keldor and he goes, my name is Skeletor. That's the moment of reclamation. That's the moment where Keldor's gone. He is then and forever Skeletor until the end. When that new power sword not only drains all the techno-virus out of Skeletor, but drains all the Havoc magic out of him too.
Yeah.
And he is left Keldor. Now, should we get a third season? We have the most beautiful third act for that character. We know exactly where he's going. We know his end game. So I am so hoping that this does well and people love it and we are able to tell that story, because we think we have a really great, surprising, and yet, of course, that's how this wraps up. But we really wanted to sort of layer that complexity of Keldor and Skeletor fighting internally.
I love it. So with that, with, the scene of Skeletor and Keldor, interplaying off of each other, and there's another scene where Skeletor delivers a gift to Hordak.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Is somebody on that team a David Fincher fan?
Oh, all of us are David. Who's not a David Fincher fan?
Right? I mean, as soon as Skeletor and Keldor started talking to each other, I was like, oh, this is Fight Club. This is 100% Fight Club, which is one of my all-time favorite books and movies. And then the box with Motherboard's head in it, I was like, okay, I see you. Whoever is back there.
If there's going to be criticism, it's going to be, oh, we thought Motherboard was going to have a bigger role and all that. Here's the thing. Allow me to spoil a little something.
Okay.
That was not the first Motherboard that has existed on Eternia, and that will not be the last Motherboard that has existed on Eternia.
Okay. I'm
just going to leave it at that.
Just let that hang there.
That shell that was hanging up there, that's gone.
Cool. So with that, is she a purely technological being in this form, or is there bioorganics something going on?
Let me give you and your beautiful listeners just a little bit of sort of, and you may know this, they may know this, everybody may know this, but data is able to be encrypted upon crystals. Mm-hmm. You are able to store information within crystals. Crystals are organic, and yet at the same time, they use liquid crystal in technology. Our idea for Motherboard sort of envelops all of that. Okay. That somewhere deep within Eternia, maybe close to where the starseed exists, in a chamber filled with crystals, that there was some spark of consciousness. And that somehow made its way to the surface. By the way, we know how it all happened. We have it all back. But we haven't been able to tell that story yet. But that's sort of the idea, that there is a consciousness that happened a very long time ago, and it is incorporated into a way that could merge from organic to technology. And how would that happen? But somehow within crystals.
Cool.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all. I said too much. I've said too much.
All right. No more. The gods of Eternia. Let's talk a little bit about that. We have Ka, we have Zor, and now we have Havoc, who represent these three deities, or, for lack of a better term, gods. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of fans see the obvious inspiration for this coming from Eternity War with, Zor, Serpos, and Horikoth. Obviously, this is a little bit different. Plays out
a little bit different. It has echoes of similar themes. I think. Right. I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to root it very much in the toys.
Okay.
We didn't want to bring in, I think, new ideas. We wanted to take what we already have and enrich the ideas. Okay. So we know that the sorceress has the staff of Zor, right? Mm-hmm. We know that there was a version of that had a staff of Ka. And we know that Skeletor has a staff called the Havoc staff. Mm-hmm. So between those three, I think it was Patrick and Adam that came up with the sort of the sequence around the pond with Zor and Ka and Havoc, and sort of the way the three gods interacted. Mm-hmm. And the way mythologies work, or the way religions work, it's the passing down of stories of things that have happened And then over time, they go through multiple filters of interpretation. I'm sure that there existed at a time entities that brought with them different ideas. In our mind, Zor was the bringer of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bringer of beginnings and, new fertilities and things like that. Ka was life. Like if Zor was birth, Ka was life, Havoc was death.
Okay.
And you need all three of those things as the sort of like the cycle of existence, right? Birth,
Right.
life. Zor brings in new things. Ka is about what it is to live, to taste, to touch, to smell, and Havoc is about sort of the disintegration of those things. And then in order to rebirth, to reborn, you need to tear things down, and that's kind of the sort of the symbolism between the three of them. And that's why he is the Lord of Destruction.
Mm.
And we sort of added on the idea that Ka was neither good nor bad. Ka was just about living. It's
right.
For the Satanists you talk to, they'll tell you that Satan is neither good nor bad. He just embraces what the experiences of life is like. That's kind of what we went off of. Some people may say, "Oh no, he's bad." He is bad. Some people say, "Nah," it depends on who you talk to. Depends on the Satan you talk to. Right. And they'll tell you, we don't want to wish harm to anybody. We just want to live our lives. So I think that's kind of the idea. Obviously, any one of those things can lead to the other, right? Anything can, if you enjoy life too much, it could be destructive. Mm-hmm. But you need to destroy things in order to build them back up again. So it is this kind of gray scale along these gods, but it's easier to break them down into three. We came up with the notion of what the three towers represented in, Preternia. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, I've seen this online a lot of time. Pre is a prefix for before, so that means this should be before Eternia. And yes, that is absolutely true. But pre as a prefix also means beyond. And as in preternatural, it is beyond the natural order. Our Preternia is beyond Eternia. It is beyond the terra firma. And that is where we came up with the notion of that. And because when we say Earth 65 million years ago, it's not pre-Earth, it's Earth.
Right. It's still Earth.
Prehistoric Earth. That's an adjective. It's not a noun.
Mm-hmm.
Preternia as a noun is a different place. It is beyond the terra firma of Eternia. So we came up with the idea of the three gods building the towers of Preternia to represent, birth, life, death. And then within the central tower, a repository of where all of the information of all three could exist. That is why there is and Grayskull Tower is a sort of symbol of the Zor Tower. Mm-hmm. We have a different sort of a different map to how it is and why it looks like that, but to be revealed later.
Cool.
And of course the reveal that there was a fourth tower up there somewhere. And we know where that tower is too. We know where it is. We know why it exists. We know what it's called. We know whose it was, and we know all of that stuff. But that's a story for another day.
Awesome. Cool. So going into this idea of Ka and what Ka, represents, the experiences of life, we see this really, to me, this really cool conversation between Tila as she's harnessing this new snake magic and taking on that awesome snake armor that we all love. And Evilin is goading her about her feelings for He-Man to draw these emotions out of her and then teaching her how to push it back down and control it and not let it control her. And I really like that moment they had where they're sitting in the snow together and they're talking. And they have this moment where you see them not as rivals, you see them becoming friends. And it's very sweet. And it's almost as if Evilin is giving her this older sister's advice on life and what it means to love and what love looks like, and to not waste time anymore.
Yeah, she's, she's a little jaded. She's
A little
she's
bit.
been around the block. She's seen some things. She's done some things, and I
Mm-hmm.
think she's just looking for some kind of solace, right? She just she needs some peace in her life right now. And I think that she went to Granomir to do her part and just exist. I don't think she went there with the intention of oh my God, I need to get to Preternia. I don't think she went in there with, I don't think she thinks she deserves it. I don't think she thinks that there was a path for her for that. I think she just went there because she was like, I need to do something. I have no control over anything anymore. I'm a little aimless. I'm a little lost. And I feel that that was a moment for her to sort of, it's the least I can do. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is the moment for me. And I think when Tila comes in and says, look, the universe isn't done with either of you yet. You've both done some shit. And I think that here's what we're going to do. If you guys help me, there is a chance that what you're doing for the greater good. And I firmly believe that that's where the universe will embrace you for doing that. Yeah. And, for Granomir, it was his swan song, his last moment before passing on to step in and do something great. He had pulled away from the world. He had hated and resented people for so long. That's right out of the old series, right? That was, you can't trust humans, right? We never knew why he couldn't trust humans, so we gave it a little bit of an angle, right? Like, oh, why does Granomir feel like he can't trust humans? Why does he feel like they abuse their power? Mm-hmm. Oh, because he thought he did something nice and they screwed him over? Oh, well, shit, I would pull back too.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think Lynn articulating, like, your judgment led to some bloodshed, led to massive bloodshed. Mine too, by the way. She's like, I screwed up too. I know this. She's like, but, maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance. What do we got to lose? We can do the right thing. We can't just give up because we screwed up, because we did something wrong. We can't just give up and pull away from the world, right? Yeah. Let's take ownership of that. And I think within that moment with Tila, she sees someone who, I think she sees the life she could have had.
Yeah.
Had she taken some different choices. And I think that, a lot of people were a little upset that she did not get, punished, like flogged. She destroyed heaven and all that. Yes, high crimes. But I also think that, within herself lived her own punishment. And sure. I think that that's what we're kind of seeing in this is that she's beaten herself up enough.
Yeah. And it's time to move beyond that. And yeah, everything you said. Yeah. Stop hiding from the pain and move forward.
Could she have gotten locked up? Sure. Could she go off her rocker again and she's got all her powers? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. She could have done all of those things. We wanted to think the best of Lynn going through this. We wanted her to see that she was liberated from being a villain. She did not have to be evil Lynn. Mm-hmm. And that was more of an awakening for her. So we liked that without the burden of locking her up and having her escape or Hannibal Lectering her where she's in prison and they have to go to her for, like, we wanted it to be a little more graceful. I think that's the word I'd use, is just give her a little bit more grace.
Well, and it also helps strengthen the hero's convictions, with Orko telling her, you're not born evil, mm-hmm. It's all about choice. And, Tila trusting her to go on the journey in the first place to go find the halves of the power sword. And,
and that's what it's really about is, it speaks more to the heroes than it does to the villains. They believe in her. They believe that her path is not as a villain.
Yeah.
And look, she's my favorite character. I love Evilin. I don't want her to be a hero.
Yeah.
She needs to have complexity. She needs to be constantly, looking at things differently. And that's why I think the way we end her as a cosmic enforcer, she is not black and white. She is truly the one who is looking at things and seeing things that and will speak power or speak truth to power when she feels that something doesn't smell right. And she's not afraid to do that. And that's what we like about her. And that, that's pulled right out of Filmation as well. That's, that's where you'll see, in the tribunal, you'll have Zodak in the middle, you'll have Strobo to his right, and you'll have Xanthor to his left. Xanthor is right out of Golden Discs of Knowledge, who was someone who literally led Skeletor to a sacred, golden disc with all the knowledge of all the universe, literally put it all in the hands of Skeletor. He was duped into doing it. And he paid his price, and he worked towards making amends. And Zodak rewarded him by finding balance. You are now welcome and part of the Cosmic Enforcers. And I think that is honestly, it just makes sense to us. Like, we were like, well, of course that's where she would end up. I mean, we don't want to just have her bounce back and forth. Okay, well, now she's a bad guy. Now she's a good guy. Now she's a bad guy. Now she's it's like, no. Give her a new responsibility, taking everything that we know about Evelyn and putting that in her new role. She's gonna cause some shit. Right? Like, she's going to see, wait a minute. I thought we're supposed to bring balance. What's this guy doing? Yeah. How's he doing that? Like, and that's sort of like what we want to do with her. Like, she's going to,
and hopefully we get to the point where the Cosmic Enforcers aren't just continuing to sit idly by all of this shit is going on.
That's also part of that story. Everybody was asking, where's Zodak while the revelation was happening? Where's Zodak? Trust us. We knew where all of it was. Arguably, Zodak thought maybe that all should happen. Maybe that all should have happened. So there is a position that the Cosmic Enforcers take on certain issues. There's a reason why bad guys win. There's a reason why the Horde, dominates. There's a reason. Right. Like, there are reasons. It is about balance. And I think that is why they're so complicated. And we didn't want to just, we wanted to sort of introduce them and acknowledge their existence, but that's a big story, and that's God willing.
Cool.
I keep saying God willing. Season 3.
That was one of the final moment that Evelyn has with Granomir, where she's kneeling and talking to him as he's dying, and that was one of the moments where that I got emotional. And
Kevin wrote that scene, and honestly, we were bawling when and when John was acting it. Oh my God! First of all, John Delancey is Granomir. He Fantastic. Is so good. Like brings he brings the sort of like I have no time for you people.
Yes.
So beautifully, but he also brings the pathos, and he also brings the emotion. And when he said, "Do you know what that makes you?" Good, Lynn. Good. Yep. Even I cried. Yeah. I've read it 100 times and seen versions of the rough cuts.
Well, I mean, Lena, with how well she delivers her lines, and it's gorgeous. That whole scene was gorgeous.
She's just a pro. She is an unbelievable actor, and I'm obsessed with her.
We have Tila becoming something new. She I believe, is she officially called the Tri-Sorceress? Is
that's the name we were using in writing this, and it somehow found its way into Evelin's mouth when she calls her the Tri-Sorceress. And I feel like that makes sense right now. She is the Tri-Sorceress. She's the sorceress of all three gods. So sure. Let's call her a Tri-Sorceress. You'll know when it shows up on the packaging what she's called.
Yes. We'll see.
God, I hope we get that figure.
That's a good looking figure. And that brings me to obviously what I'm gonna gush about. We see this moment that I've been waiting for a literal lifetime to see on screen. And the way it happens, the build up to it, we see this flashback of Adam and Tila training together the day before she's named Man at Arms, with the day before he dies, and we see they're in love.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
they've never said anything, and they've
they
never
were never
acted
able,
on it.
never
And
able to.
And doesn't that color your the way you watch Revelation now?
Absolutely. That
Like,
was the first. That
because
was the first thing I thought. I was like, I was already understanding of Tila's outburst and her pain, but this scene just gives it that much more of an oomph to the context and be like, no, she was in love with this person and she didn't know who he was and he's dead. She never got to say anything. She never got to act upon it. All of these hopes and dreams unfulfilled, and it's just over.
it hurts me just thinking about it. Like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's brutal. And so to see that flashback and then to see it shift back to what's happening in that moment where Tila's being torn apart by these three magics and Adam is desperately trying to get to her and people are holding him back. And
I love
I,
when Evelyn says, I can't hold her.
yes,
And
yes,
he says, I
I
can.
can. And he's
Oh,
like, I'm in. I'm going in.
Save me, Daddy. Here he comes.
And he jumps and he grabs her, and just the gentleness in his voice as he's holding her and he says the words, and the sword ignites with the new mechanisms.
That was written in the
Oh,
script. Kevin wrote Adam Whispers
oh,
by the power of Grayskull. And honestly, like when he pitched it to, because they pitched the show in the series, like, okay, episode 1, here's what's gonna happen. Episode 2, and then it's like, go write the scripts. And when he pitched it, he was like, Whispers by the power of Grayskull. Right in her ear. And I was like chills. I was like, oh yeah, that's so good.
I'm getting teary-eyed talking about this. So, excuse me, but it was beautiful. I mean, you know how much I love these two.
I've heard that
You've heard a little bit. I think I've mentioned it once or twice. I mean, my wife and I, we had action figures on our wedding cake. I've always regarded her as my Tila. She's this strong woman that makes me want to be a better person, that helps me be happy and find my joy, loyal, never-ending loyalty. And so to just see all of these feelings I have about these two characters and to see it unfold on screen and to see that moment where they become this ultimate power couple together in the power of Grayskull,
I want
and
that
they
on a
finally
t-shirt.
share that kiss.
I want that
I
on
do
a
too.
I want power couple.
Power couple, and just have them
holding hands in that iridescent
that magic
background magic. Yeah.
I want that 2-pack as an action figure set with that translucent magic plastic whatever, but then with their new armor sets on, holding hands in the package would be
I love those
amazing.
looks. I love both of those looks so much. That He-Man look. We were so excited when we saw those designs come in from Eddie. We were like, oh, look how good it looks. And you could see all the influences. You could see the movie and the Sideshow statue and the, even the little new adventures in there. Like you could see all of the nods to it, but it's so beautiful. That red and gold.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be a fun figure too. And it's got, just this ultimate culmination of everything that He-Man is. He-Man perfected, It's beautiful. But that, I mean, I can't say enough. That kiss blew my mind. My jaw dropped. I had tears in my eye. I just had tears in my eyes talking about it. And I've seen it 5 times now. Thank you for that. That everybody, I'll say it to anybody who will listen to me.
I mean, it was coming. We all knew that it was coming, which made some of the criticism for Revelation so confounding. We were like, wait, what? We literally have people talking about them as like multiple times throughout the series. We talk about how Tila has the hots for He-Man.
Evilin is mocking her for still carrying that torch.
Calls him your muscle-bound boy toy. Like,
yes, Skeletor calls her your Tila when they're
Yeah.
waiting for her to show up. I mean, come on, people. But thank you.
It's just nice to see that culmination. And honestly, we were really like, the only dual transformation we've seen was in the Christmas special, or actually, it wasn't just the Christmas special. There was 2 other episodes, I think, where He-Man and She-Ra powered up together, in Secret of the Sword and the Christmas special, and then a couple of other episodes. But it's like they didn't influence each other; they were just happening. Those, and I think it's because they had to use the same animation that they already had. So the fact that we were able to do a transformation sequence where they influenced each other, where the magic moved between the two of them, and
it's a dance. It's a dance.
It was so beautiful, honestly. When Powerhouse Team was like, you guys, just wait till you see this. We were like, and the music is so good, and Bear's music comes in, and it's like, da-da-da. It's like, it's got this power ballad aspect to it. We were like, oh yeah, this is great.
I can happily say I can die happy now.
Well,
I don't want to.
But yes, it was a moment that we were all ready to get to. So, and again, God willing, we get to season 3. Obviously, more development of that dynamic will happen, and we're not gonna put something between them. That's I will promise you that nothing, like, there's not going to be another woman. There's not going to be anything coming between those two.
Thank you. So I've got my schedule book open here. When do you want me to pencil in a time to come record lines as the officiator?
That's a great idea. Hold on.
They kiss. He-Man, gives up the crown, dissolves the monarchy and everything like that, and they move in together. Happily ever after. That was fun. That was such a sweet.
Did you want to stay at my place?
Yeah, it was cute. It just has, I don't know what the word is for it. Maybe it's irony, but it's this idea that 2 of the most powerful people in this universe, and they're just still a little bit shy about how to be around each other, and they're in love, and it's cute, and I loved it.
It's super cute.
So I don't know why people would be upset that He-Man isn't being king when the alternative is getting to live in a skull-faced heavy metal castle with his hot girlfriend.
I think if anybody's upset about it, I think it's just because King He-Man, the concept of King He-Man, is something that has been in the ether, right?
Yes.
And I think people wanted to see King He-Man brought to life. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to see something that has been in the ether. But I think that, again, looking at it through 21st century lens, it felt a little old-fashioned.
I think so too.
And that, not to say that I don't love the nostalgia of certain ideas. I do. I love nostalgia, and I try to infuse everything we do with nostalgia. But I do think that, having He-Man dissolve the monarchy felt modern. It felt very contemporary, and it felt like we're moving the story forward in a new way that wasn't just aping something that somebody wrote before.
Yeah.
And it's a little dangerous. It's a little daring to do something like that too. And I think that
it's unexpected.
It will bring challenges for He-Man. It will bring problems. It may, the elections may not go as planned. It may, what if, there may be quite a few people that run for that office. In my world, I'd love this to get to a version of what they did in 2000, where a representative from each of the different, united sort of kingdoms across Eternia. You'll have the Adrenids, and you'll have the Avians, and you'll have the Spilians, and you'll have the all of the different races represented. The Keks, we have the Keks in our show. You'll have all of those different races represented at a sort of parliament. I mean, that's kind of what I envision is we'll create a parliament of Eternia. And in that parliament, some of them may be masters. Some of them may be, it may be Stratos. Sure. It could be Hawk or Delora. It could be, a lot of different characters across that. So we can talk about different ways to incorporate those sort of characters in this. And it will feel right. It's not going to feel weird. It's going to feel right.
Yeah. We got to talk about that end scene, the tease at the end. We've already talked about the Cosmic Enforcers. Let's talk about the other tease that you guys slipped in there. We see Despara.
Who?
That one lady that kind of looks like Hordak. And
don't know her.
It's sexy.
I don't know her. I don't. Despara will be played by Mariah Carey.
Awesome. Love it. So it was Gray. Is it Delisle?
Yeah.
Delisle, yeah. Gray Delisle. She was the voice of Despara, which sounded awesome.
Gray's awesome. She's an icon.
So without, getting into the muddy waters of the rights with She-Ra and stuff like that, obviously there's hopes moving forward. What can you say? What can you say to that?
It's good to have hopes. Here's what I can say. God willing, we get a third season. We know what we want to do with the story. There's a lot of things we have to figure out, but we know what we want to do. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to tell a story that everybody will be excited about and give them what they want while presenting fun things in new ways. We know all the big beats. We know all the questions that I think people have. We have the answers to. We just need, we need to be able to do it. So we need the viewers, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay. I want to talk about like Easter eggs and background details that are and references and stuff that you guys put in the show. I picked up on a few of them, but I'm sure there's more that I'll constantly be pulling from. We see a lot of references in Scareglow's reliquary in Subternia.
I sent the background artists so many images of things that I wanted to see in there, like Shakoti's death mask and obviously the Diamond Ray of Disappearance is in there, and there is when Skeletor is trying to release Molocron is his name, the horse with the
with the tentacles. Yeah,
he's got this cauldron that's in there. From the Golden Books, the Eye of the Cosmos is in there. The Clock of Eternity is in there. Yeah. I went so deep in the artifacts, pulling pictures. I was literally going through my little Golden Books, taking pictures, sending it to them. I wanted to just pack it with all of those little artifacts.
It was neat. I'm gonna leave. I'm sure our friend Yuko will break all of that down for us. So I'm going to let him do it.
A month just screen grabbing and zoom and enhance, and he's gonna be pinging me at 3:00 in the morning about what is inspiring this and where's this from. And he is eagle eyes. Eyes. He just sees it all, man.
You can't get anything past him, and it's amazing.
Nope.
I'm very happy that I've been able to make a friendship with him. Just getting to talk to him is a treat.
He is the Oracle of the Crystal Sea. Let's just be real. That guy knows everything.
He's the guy. So beyond that, we also have a reference to Disco Skeletor with his final form.
When we originally did, Techno Skeletor or Skeletech, we wanted it to be a nod to Laser Light Skeletor, New Adventure Skeletor, somewhere in there. And it sort of took on a life of its own. Like it sort of just became its own thing. When the guys came back and pitched the idea that the Havoc staff would be grafted into him, we loved that. We loved that. And I said, at some point, it has to light up red, like his arm in Laser Light Skeletor, which we did get to do that. But they it sort of evolved and became. I love the hood over one side of the eye and the other eye being all deformed. Loved all that. And then when we knew he was going to sort of level up and get the sort of the Technomancer, version of Skeletor, it was like, well, guys, it's got to be Disco Skeletor. Like we got to bring in the gold and the dark blue, and the weird shininess to it, and and they, the team. I mean, it's not a 1-to-1. It's not exactly Disco Skeletor.
Sure.
You
know it. You see it.
See the nods to it there. So we were like, yeah, that's good. That's good. And I love that scene when he goes like this, and all the arms come up behind him, and he like, I love that shot.
So cool.
I don't know how that.
Yeah, how's that toy gonna be?
Like right
now. So we see that. We've talked about Tila's Havoc design with the Krita and Evilin reference. The culmination of all the He-Man with the movie references and the CG symbol and all of it. Man of War. I see a lot of people confusing him in the trailer with Extendar.
I love that.
Was that intended?
No, it actually wasn't intended. There was in very early on when we talked about the show, there was a lot of B plots. One of the things that I really wanted to do, and it is all me, was I wanted to sort of take some of our techno heroes, Rio Blast, Snout Spout, Extendar, Mechanic, and see what they would be like if they were grafted with the technovirus. And I really I wanted at one point to have Mechanic be sort of like a traitor and have Mechanic align with the Trapjaw's or Triclops' Colt. Unfortunately, timing. We just didn't have the time to do all those B stories, unfortunately, because we were telling such a meaty story with Skeletor and Hordak and He-Man, that we wanted to just sort of like give the A plot its stars. But doesn't mean I don't want to go into those characters. I love seeing characters that we've never seen in animation before. I really wish we could have gotten to Dragstore and Mosquitor just for Pixel Dan.
For sure.
Just to make sure that Mosquitor is it. I asked him at one point, because at one point in the scripts, Mosquitor was in there, and I said, who would you want to voice Mosquitor? Like, just who's your dream casting? And he was like, oh man, I don't know how to answer that. And I was just like, again, it was just because of time. We just, you only have but so many minutes, and every minute has to count. So we wanted to make sure that if, and also, you're paying for every character design. And that, at some point, designing characters that have 1 second of screen time is like knowing that they are a lead character, knowing that Mosquitor is not an unnamed villager. That is a role that has to be designed. It goes through multiple layers of approvals and all that stuff. And it just seemed like it would be a waste because we're never going to get to them on screen. It was a bummer. But yeah, it wasn't intentional that Man of War looked like Extendar. We actually started with Duncan first. Like, what is Duncan's new role at court? What does he look like? What is that? And then how does his armor evolve from that look? So that's kind of where it started. We wanted it to evoke the Man-at-Arms armor, but have a sort of a layer up. And we thought, rather than it be all orange, like I think there might have been a version where it was orange and black, where the armor was all orange and then the undersuit was black, which I liked. Okay. But we all thought that it looked a little Halloween, and we all thought that the bigger win would be the white armor.
Well, it reminded me of a very regal looking suit of armor, like for what he represents to this monarchy. He's a knight, a royal knight, and that was kind of what I took from that design. But I did think it was interesting to see people talking about Extendar, because I mean, it does look like Extendar
Sure.
a little bit. So
Sure, I get that.
that's fun. So in Revelation, there is there's some fun Easter eggs and stuff that were thrown in regarding like team members. Like they had you and Rob David and Kevin Smith animated in that final battle. Your names, I think, show up in the is it the Beneath Grayskull in the Tide of Transformation area? In like the
Is that true?
I think I read that somewhere. I could be thinking differently.
I had no idea.
It's like part of the Eternian script or something like that.
Cool. I had no idea.
So if that's false, I'm sorry.
I didn't even know that we had animated designs. I had no idea.
Honestly, I think that's really all I have. We've been talking for over an hour.
We have.
Doesn't feel like it. It's so fun. I'm so excited that it's finally here.
Me too.
The way it killed me, I'm sure it killed you. Like you said.
I'm just waiting to talk about it.
Yes. And now we can finally start talking about it. And
I hope people like it. I hope that the contingent of people who felt like they didn't have enough He-Man feel like this is closer to what they were expecting. I hope that people feel like we're taking the story in an interesting direction, and that we surprised them, and that it wasn't so expected or predictable. I don't like being predictable. And I think I've said this before. It's really hard to surprise people nowadays. Sure. It's really hard, and I love going into movies where I don't know anything. Even if I love the characters, even if I love the worlds, I love not knowing where it's going to go, because I want to be taken on a ride. I want to be taken on a ride, and I trust that the people involved are going to do that. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'm disappointed too. But I do think that everybody goes into it with the best of intentions, and I hope that people see that we did that for this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. It's always
my friend
talking with you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I will be. I'm going to be messaging you endlessly anyways. So I've always got more to think about and say. But yes, I think next time will probably be when we talk about comics.
Yes. And I think that the three of us should all do it together, because I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay. We'll make sure that happens. That sounds fun. So, well, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for your friendship.
Back at you, buddy.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.